The Denver Nuggets are a team pushing to get to the finals next season behind their superstar Nikola Jokic. The Nuggets are coming off a season where they finished third in the Western Conference at 46-27 and appeared in a Western Conference Finals where they lost to the Los Angeles Lakers but was able to pull off two amazing 3-win comebacks on the LA Clippers and Utah Jazz. A lot of people counted these guys out and their ceiling was to get to the second round, and that's it. I'll admit and say that I counted out this team as well, but in all fairness, the Clippers did have the Nuggets beat in 2 straight games, but they completely choked leads to the Nuggets. Not to take away credit from the Nuggets, but they shouldn't have been in the conference finals, but they were able to show everyone, including me, that they have a great team chemistry and resilience as a team that allowed them to capitalize and defeat a choking Clippers team. And that fighting spirit is what can make a team a potential champion. Nikola Jokic finally emerged into being a superstar, and this Nuggets team is on the rise. They are very young, and now they have to capitalize on an impressive playoff run. The Nuggets were able to snag Zeke, Nnaji, and Hampton in the draft. I don't expect too much out of year one from these guys, but they are good guys for their future. The Nuggets had a bit of a disappointing offseason so far. They did sign back Paul Millsap, a veteran guy, for them, and an underrated signing in Jamal Murray, who can be a defensive big for them. Green, a defensive power forward who can help stretch the floor, and Paul Millsap was a guy who played 24 minutes a game, and I expect Green to back up Paul here. Green will give your team productive minutes, probably not on the same tier as a player of Paul Millsap, but nonetheless a productive player. Paul Millsap is back on a 1-year, $10 million deal, which isn't bad, and given his veteran leadership, being able to play inside and stretch the floor as well as be a good overall team defender for them, he is older but definitely is a valuable piece for this team. Their rotation among bigs next season will be Jokic, Green, Millsap, and maybe Bobo, who just got a full contract, but I don't expect him to get good consistent minutes off the bench. He may be a third string center, but it may be necessary for the Nuggets to look to add another center, another defensive center if they can. They can look to use Green as a small ball center, but I expect majority of his minutes to be backing up Paul in the power forward position. They did lose Mason Plumlee, a good backup center for them, Torrey Craig, a defensive wing, and their biggest free agency loss in Jerami Grant. Grant was a big piece for this team and the Nuggets' best defensive player, and losing him has to sting for the Nuggets because they are a team that needs defensive guys. Grant leaving was said to be him betting on himself and wanting a bigger role, and I don't understand that because I don't think he's that type of player, but if he believes it, go for it and see what happens, and he got paid. So the Nuggets did offer him the same amount of money as the Pistons, which also stings because he left for a franchise that should be looking to tank next season. What may be a win here for the Denver Nuggets is that they didn't overpay for anyone in free agency. But what Grant leaving means is that I expect Michael Porter Jr. to be stepping up into a bigger role next season as a starting small forward. And how I view this team, the Nuggets' championship hopes are in the hands of Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray. Jokic will be Jokic. He will be the main guy for this team. I'm not worried about him at all. He will be great. He's the best center in the league. But he needs those other options in Murray and Michael Porter Jr. to step up. Jamal Murray has to be a consistent player for the Nuggets, and I can't stress this enough. He is important to this team. He has to be a 20-25 points per game guy because as we've seen in the playoffs, Jamal Murray was the reason why the Nuggets got out the first round, and every time he is playing at a high level and scoring at will, the Nuggets are impossible to beat. Match his high level production with Jokic's production and the Nuggets are an absolute nightmare. Murray has to be that reliable second option behind Jokic. His production is so important in competing for a championship, especially with how he is able to create shots with the ball in his hands. And Murray has that confidence and the ability to be one of the best scoring guards in the league. He will have to be that if the Nuggets want to win a championship. But this can't always be a two-man game. The Nuggets need a third guy to step up when needed, and that guy is Michael Porter Jr. Porter is a guy where if he can break out next season, Nuggets fans will be saying, Jerami who? Michael Porter Jr. is oozing with potential and has the potential to become the best player on the Nuggets. He is such a gifted scorer and can score from anywhere at his 6'10 height. I'm pretty sure we all are ready for Porter to be unleashed because his ability as a cutter, shooter, and just overall scoring threat gives the Nuggets another scoring option to go to. If he can go out next season, average, let's say, 17, 18 points and play solid defense, and Murray becomes a 20 points per game guy, people will have to start taking this Nuggets team seriously if they haven't already. Porter's defense is something he is going to have to fill in the void that Jerami Grant left behind, and how we've seen it in the bubble, Porter really has to get better on that end. They will run with the starting lineup of Jamal Murray, Gary Harris, Michael Porter, Paul Millsap, and Nikola Jokic, which is a good starting five in the league to compete in the West. Probably the only question mark here is Gary Harris. He is a good defensive guy, but he has struggled with injuries, and he has also struggled to stay consistent. His three-point shooting dipped down a lot, and when you factor in that he is making $21 million a year for 10 points and poor efficiency, is a scary sight. If he can't bounce back next season and be a consistent offensive player, the Nuggets should look to shop him. Also, I don't know what the Nuggets' full plan will be at the small forward position. Will they start Porter or Will Barton? But I'd imagine Porter will be the starter and be a main guy on the team. Going to next season, all eyes will be on Michael Porter to break out. They have pieces in Will Barton, who is an underrated piece for the Nuggets, but didn't play in the bubble due to injury. Monte Morris, PJ Dozier, Bol Bol, JaMychal Green, and their recent draft picks. But can these guys put together a top defensive unit? They were a solid defensive team, but still can improve on that end, and that's what they need to become a championship threat. But as I mentioned before, they lost a good amount of their defensive pieces. The Nuggets are a team in good position to remain competitive in the West. They did lose some pieces, but I expect Porter Jr., Gary Harris, JaMychal Green to step up for this team. And these guys must step up because the rich got richer. The Lakers became an even better team. I would say the Phoenix Suns just became threats in the West. Portland also got better. Dallas made some small moves to get better. The Pelicans made moves and have a young core that they can go to get better. This Nuggets team can compete with every team in the West here. I feel like their main threats would be the Lakers, and dare I say, if the Clippers get their minds right as a team and make more moves, they could be a team that bounces back in the West. But overall, I expect the Denver Nuggets to be around the 2nd, 3rd, 4th seed in the West next year and will be in the running to make the finals. They are progressing upwards in their development, but they lost some pieces in free agency. But they have a good core to compete with.